Do you know how a cochlear implant works? Or another question would be, how does hearing work? Do you know how hearing works? Did you know you have these teeny tiny bones in your ear? They're really like that big. They're so tiny. I'm going to tell you how hearing works, and then I'm going to tell you how a cochlear implant works.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Dane. I'm an author, illustrator, creator, and founder of His Little Light of Mine, a publishing company where I create personalized storybooks and more. I love all things art, digital illustration, creating, and self-publishing. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Dane. I am the author and illustrator of this book called I'm Getting a Cochlear Implant. Do you know how a cochlear implant works? Or another question would be, how does hearing work? Do you know how hearing works? Did you know you have these teeny tiny bones in your ear? They're really like that big. They're so tiny. I'm going to tell you how hearing works, and then I'm going to tell you how a cochlear implant works. Okay, so hearing. Inside your ear, you've got this tunnel, right? And sound waves go inside your ear, and there's a drum in there, the eardrum. Have you heard of that word, the eardrum? Anyways, it wiggles, and so sound wiggles your eardrum, and then there are these little bones that are connected to your eardrum. So the eardrum wiggles, and then the bones wiggle, and the last bone hits this seashell thing. The seashell thing is called the cochlea, and that is a very important part of your ear because inside of the cochlea is the hearing nerve. Without the hearing nerve, you can't hear. So anyways, sound goes in your ear, wiggles your eardrum, it wiggles the bones, that last bone hits the cochlea, and inside of that little seashell is liquid. And if you take the seashell, it looks like this. Let's say we took it and we unrolled it. There's a nerve right along the edge of it, I guess you could say. Anyways, and there's little hairs that are all along that hearing nerve. And so when the liquid starts to move, then the hairs start to move. And when the hairs move, they're connected to that nerve. They talk to the nerve. And after they talk to the nerve, then the signal goes up and boop, talks to your brain. So if there's a problem with your hearing, like this little girl, she has the hearing nerve, but there is an issue with some of the hairs on her nerve. So if the hairs aren't talking to the nerve, then the nerve can't talk to the brain. So what a cochlear implant does is they put it inside that cochlea. So remember how I told you that if you unroll it, it looks like this? So there's this little thing that goes along the bottom of it, and there's all these little electrodes, and the electrodes are what does the talking to the nerve. So the outside of the cochlear implant gets the sound just like you would get in your ear, and then there are messages that go through the cochlear implant, and they signal these electrodes, and these electrodes start talking, and whenever those talk to the nerve, then the nerve talks to the brain and allows you to hear. So that is how a cochlear implant works. And something else that's really interesting is if you think about, remember I told you about how the cochlea is like a seashell, but if you unroll it, it can be flat. It's just like a piano. So there are low sound on one side. I think it would be on this side for you. Low sounds to high sounds, right? And so if the hairs are missing down here on the low sounds, then guess what? You can't hear the low sounds. But if there's an issue or hairs are missing on the high sounds, guess what? You can't hear the high sounds. And what's really important about your hearing is speech. Because the goal of hearing, of course, we want to hear the birds, and we want to hear our babies crying, and we want to hear music. But the most important part of our hearing is to understand speech, talking. And what you'll find is on that hearing nerve, all those hairs, some sounds are here, some sounds are here, and some sounds are here. So if there's a lot of sounds missing on one side, sure, you might be able to hear, but you may not be able to hear all of it. So it might kind of sound like something underwater, or maybe you don't hear all of the vowels, for example. So it might kind of sound like, sure, you can hear, but can you understand? Maybe, maybe not. So anyways, that's one of the reasons why there are hearing aids and cochlear implants, to help people get access to as many of those speech sounds as possible so that they can understand speech that's coming to them and they can learn how to speak to other people.
Have you heard of the speech banana? Take a look at this audiogram. Do you see how there's a shape that kind of looks like a banana? This is where the majority of speech sounds fall on the audiogram. Get your book on Amazon or contact me for bulk orders. Check out my website, imgettingacochlearimplant.com. You can help other people find my book by leaving a review on Goodreads, Amazon, or both. Did you know that I make clip art? Look, they have hearing devices. His Little Light of Mine clip art.
Get these and more at hislittlelightofmine.com. Personalized storybooks, teacher gifts and resources, Bible verse handwriting books, children's notebooks, journals and sketchbooks, picture books, Christmas, and clip art.